Hi, DJ Tina here, host of HMTV Canada Easy. On the phone with me today is a really kick-ass band called Last Stone Cast. Hi John, I'm hooked on your song track, I Don't Owe You Anything.
Glad to hear that. We actually hear that a lot. It's catchy, ain't it?
It sure is. That song is catchy. It's the obvious reason why it's creating a buzz on all radio stations and the media.
The response has been really pretty amazing. We're very happy with that. We're still trying to figure out why that one, and why not one of the other ones, but, you don't want to think about that kind of thing too hard, I guess. You just have to roll with it.
The thing is, with that song, it stays with you. You want to hear it again. You can't get it out of your head for some reason.
Yeah, Scotty's definitely got a knack for a hook, man. There's no doubt. So that song's pretty much indicative of what the next record is about. It's all pretty much like that. Some's a little bit heavy, some's a little mellower, but basically right along there. The difference between this record and the one that came before it was that when we recorded Last Stone Cast, we had actually only been playing together about 3 months.
Wow.
So we were still learning, each other's little things. This album we actually took time to write and been playing it out live for about 6 months now. So we felt pretty confident that we were on top of things and really liked what we've got. I'm glad you like it too. That's a good thing.
Oh, for sure I do. How is the production of your current album, Life Construed, going, and what are your goals for the release date of this album?
Well, right now I'm trying to finish it up. The problem is that I'm living in North Carolina and teaching, and I'm recording in Cleveland, Ohio. So I'm having to go back and forth. I've got all the basic tracks done, all the vocals, all that kind of stuff. I'm just at the mixing stage. The plan is to try to have it done within the next few weeks and then get it to the record company in Texas to get it mastered, and then it will be done. So probably sometime in October. We originally had hoped for August, but it just didn't work out. There's always something that trips you up, man. In this case, it was just simply finding the time to get all three of us in the studio, because the way I produce is by doing, it's old school, I guess. I get the band to do all my basic tracks live in the studio, and then take it from there with whatever kind of overdubbing we want to do. The thing that tripped us up this time was that we played the entire album without a vocal track, and then went back for Scott to do his vocals on, and it turned out that we played some of the songs differently than when he was singing.
Oh, I see.
So we had to decide whether we wanted to, keep them the way they were recorded or re-record them, and it took a little bit rewriting of lyric, things like that. But the funny thing is we actually ended up keeping everything we did and just changed the structure of those couple of songs. I think to the better, actually. Sometimes the accidental things are the best things, so.
Yeah, and that's when you just want to go with it, because, why change it? Just leave it. It turns out better.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's one of the things that, we think we're about as a band is that, what we do on our recordings is exactly the same thing you're going to hear from us live. We never record anything or do anything on CD that we cannot do ourselves. We've talked about adding other people before. We've talked about maybe a second guitar player or a keyboard player or something like that. We don't want to do that because the three of us get along really well. We communicate really well, and when you got three people, it's kind of automatically a democracy,
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And we just don't want to mess up that chemistry, so we try to keep things as straightforward, and if one of the three of us can't do it, then we don't record it. Basically that simple.
I dig how your lyrical content hits the hammer on the nail when it comes to social issues and relationships. Who is the mastermind that writes the band's lyrics? Is it social issues and relationships that you express in your themes, or will these themes change in your next album?
Wow, that was a lot of questions. The way that the division of labor breaks down in our band is that Scott is the primary songwriter. He writes pretty much all of the lyrics. I edit them, and there's a couple that that were just mine that he edited, but mostly they're his. The thought being that he's the one that's got to sing them, so he's got to believe it, so he should probably write it. And then I handle the arrangements with him, and I do all the production. And Bill is kind of our quality assurance guy. He'll go, guys, that's just crap. Do something different. The social personal issues thing, I think that's true. Scott tends to write a lot from some emotional place he has, and that usually expresses himself in songs about relationships, but not always, because everything is a relationship in the end, whether it's a relationship between you and the significant government or you and the world, you know. So it's pretty easy to generalize what we do. The new album, I think Scott's tackled a couple of issues on this one that, we really, particularly the issue of evangelical religion. Scott's got some real issues with that from a personal place, and there's a couple of songs on this record that, are pretty, I don't know if condemning is the right word, but it's pretty critical of, evangelical conservative Christianity, which is something that's really got a stranglehold on our country. You guys are avoiding that to the most part, which is a good thing. But we decided that we should say it because we mean it, and we really do feel that way, and, somebody's got to have the balls to actually stand up and say, this isn't right, and we figured if we don't do it, who will? So let's go for it. This album is probably, lyrically, it's probably what you'd expect. It's a lot like the stuff that came before it. Musically, it changed somewhat simply because, Bill is the new guy. He's the second drummer we've had, and he kind of changed the dynamic of how I play, right? Because I play off the drummer, and that sort of changed what Scott was doing. I think it got a little heavier, actually, which is not a bad thing in my mind.
In Canada, when it comes to religion, we're so multicultural that each multicultural society has their own, and we don't shove it down each other's throats. We just rather respect it, and there's no one enforces it on anybody here. It's just we all get along.
Well, I know. I wish we could figure that one out. I'm in Ontario a lot, actually. My son lives in Richmond Hill, so I spend a lot of time in and around Greater Toronto, and I love it, man. I think there's a lot that the Americans can learn from the Canadians. That's for damn sure.
Well, you see, it is in our federal law that we do have to respect other people's rights and religions, and it's endorsed by our Queen, so Queen Elizabeth. So we're still under British rule when it comes to human rights and respecting the human rights of others and religion and with regard to sex and that sort of thing.
Right. But you really think the monarchy's got something to do with that?
It's Queen Elizabeth, yeah. It's under federal law because we have provincial and we have federal law. And if you get caught with drinking and driving, that falls under federal law. So you'll be if you get caught for drinking and driving, you'll be under federal law. So it's under Queen Elizabeth rule, the federal jurisdiction.
I see. So the federal law comes from the Crown.
Right, it does.
Then the provincial law comes from the people.
Right. So in part, Canada is still part of. When it comes to the BNA Act, Queen Elizabeth from the UK is still part of Canada.
Right.
Yeah, that's the way our government is run, and the way our judicial and federal system. They're two. We got three systems. We have Ontario provincial judicial, which is the city bylaws, and federal, which is the main government. Federal being the highest.
Gotcha. I wonder if you have the same problems that we have down here with that. I mean, obviously we don't have the monarchy, but there's a lot of conflict between federal law and state and local law. The big issue for that one is the marijuana thing here. According to the federal law, marijuana is always a serious felony.
I think if you have a doctor's note here and you're dying of cancer, they allow you to smoke it if it kills the pain.
See, that's the thing. The states here, there's something like 13 or 15 states that have decriminalized marijuana for medicinal use and also for personal consumption. And there's a big conflict between the federal court and the state court over who has jurisdiction over that. It's a big issue because in Ohio, where I'm from originally, it's decriminalized. You can have like 200 grams or something like that, and it's just like a traffic citation.
I think
according to federal law, that's like 10 to 15 years in prison.
I think what they're really concerned about in Canada is the growers, because we've had a lot of home grow operations that they've shut down up here in Greater Ontario and around the area.
I heard about that. Unfortunately, my son is caught up with that right now, so I'm kind of been watching the Ontario courts really closely.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was a juvenile, got caught smoking his joint outside of work, but he's going to court, so I'm actually glad. I think that got his attention. It's not so much that he was using drugs that bothers me, as long as he's responsible. It's the stupidity that goes into sitting there on the curb smoking pot.
Right, yes. And, it's crazy.
If you're going to do something like that, use some common sense, stay home.
Right. Same with drinking at home. Stay at home when you're drinking. Take your keys from your friends and have them stay overnight.
Right, or if you're going to go out, make sure you have some kind of a plan. It's really pretty simple.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of things could be avoided because of it.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Can you tell us the highlights of Life Construed the fans can expect?
Well, let's see. There's 11 tracks, one of them of which is I Don't Owe You Anything. We actually recorded that one for a compilation CD that came out in North Carolina this summer, and we thought that we would, follow it up real quick by the record, and then things just, how studio stuff goes. It's always one thing after another, so we didn't get it out as quick as we wanted. So they're all very similar to that. There's, I don't even know what to tell you. It ranges from, almost a country rock thing on one tune to a song that reminds Billy's wife of Kill Switch Engage, so we're really kind of all over the map. I think the thing that holds it together is Scott, his vocal delivery. No matter what, if we're playing heavier, if we play mellower or whatever, it's always got Scott's vocals on top of it. And, I think that's one of the best things about this band, actually, is that boy can sing.
Well, there's the guitar sounds, too, which are awesome, especially in your track that you have on your MySpace, I Don't Owe You Anything. That's very good sound.
Oh, yeah, man. Scotty is, he's really a talented man, there's no doubt. Something I think that listeners would probably like to know is that every single solo Scott's ever played on any of our recordings have always been first take right off the bat. There it is. Every time. He's, I've been producing people for years now, and I've got to say that he is the easiest person I have ever had to work with. He gets it right the first time, every time. He comes in prepared. He knows what he's going to do. I love it, man. Swear to God, if every band I worked with had that kind of attitude, my job would be easy.
So then he's a natural when it comes to singing and songwriting. He pretty much knows his stuff.
He really does, man. It's kind of funny. When I met Scott, he was in a cover band called Ripcord, and they had a couple of original tunes, but it was really a cover band thing. And he honestly did not think that he had the talent to just be in an all-original band. Mm-hmm. And that just blew me away, man, because he is. He's a natural. There's no question. And when that guy sets foot on stage, he's there. It's really kind of cool, Plus, it takes some heat off of me. I can just, pop around with Bill and play the bass and not worry about it because I know that Scott's handling it. And this has been one of the first bands I've been in that I've actually been able to do that on stage, because I've always been the producer, the arranger, and being able to work with people of the caliber of Bill and Scott has just been, a dream come true for me. True professionals, and also a lot of fun. They're crazy as hell, but at the appropriate time, Work is work, play is play, and they do both 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good to have. That's rare. And when you do get it, you want to keep both of them.
Yep, I absolutely do. Well, Bill and Scott have been playing together for quite some time, actually. He was the drummer in Ripcord, so they had been together for about 10 years. But when I put Last Stone Cast together, we were using a different drummer. And Scott and I have talked about this, and we just don't know why we actually did that. Because it was, when you look back on it, it was almost inevitable that Bill would end up in this project, Mm-hmm. And the other thing that added to us, and something that wasn't as on the first CD, is that we have a lot of background, vocals going on now. We got some harmonies going on because Bill and Scott have been singing together for 10 years.
Wow.
So they really know how to play off each other and how to harmonize with each other. And it's amazing to me how much that changes the vibe of the song. Mm-hmm. It makes it different. It's kind of cool, actually. I've never really had to sit down and think about harmonies like that before. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. Will Life Construed be emotionally empowering as your previous EP, Last Stone Cast, or will it be a little more harder, a faster, rocky, with more vibe?
Wow. I think that the emotionally empowering part, I think that there's probably more on this one than there was on Last Stone Cast. Scott was coming from a different place when we wrote this album. He was comfortable with the band, and he was going through some stuff personally that, came out in the music. So I think emotionally it's probably as strong, if not stronger. The actual music itself, I think that I Don't Owe You Anything is probably a good example of where that album is at. Mm-hmm. It's not metal, but it's not anything else. It hard to explain. When people ask me what's your music like, I don't know what to say, because it gets heavy as hell. It gets really mellow, and it's just kind of all over the map.
You have that good variation in your music.
Yep, which is why we just say we're a hard rock band, because we figure that covers pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
Could you get a more generic term than that?
No, you can't. That's about the most generic term you can get for the band, for the description of the band. But all the songs are fantastic. You have that good mix.
Yeah, although funny thing is that a lot of our listeners down south have decided that we're a southern rock band. We, were asked to be honorary members of the Southern Rock Society and stuff like that, which of course we were just tickled pink, I mean, because a lot of the music at least I've listened to has definitely got its origins in the South. I love stuff like ZZ Top. I grew up learning to play guitar to ZZ Top and Rush records. But boy, there's a difference for you, right?
But you see, a lot of those ZZ Top bands and Southern rock bands are the influences when it comes to the guitar playing in most bands today.
Absolutely.
They're the godfathers of rock.
Oh, absolutely. Look at some of the bands that are doing really well right now, like Three Doors Down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're so obviously influenced by, people like Skinner or bands like Shinedown.
Right.
You can hear it. It's there, and I think that's a good thing.
And another good one is the Trues. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're Canadian. I'm pretty sure they're a Canadian band, but they've got some really good guitar sounds, and they're very original.
The Trues, Trues?
Yes.
I'll have to check them out. Maybe Jake, my son, has heard of them.
He may have, yes.
Yeah, he's really on top of the music thing up there. Yeah, I'm always looking for something new to listen to, and you just never know what's going to influence you. And I think that's why it's so hard for us to, when people try to categorize us or pinpoint us into something. I mean, if you look at some of the reviews that we've got, it's just all over the map, We've heard God Sounds Like Eddie Money. We've heard Eddie Vedder. We've heard Greg Allman. We've heard Zach Wilde, Paul Stanley, and we get compared to, like, Soundgarden and Leonard Skinner. I mean, it's like, Jesus Christ, how how varied can you possibly be? And I think it's because all three of us have really, diverse backgrounds in music, but we take our music very seriously, Scott's an 80s guy, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Eddie Van Halen walks on water as far as Scott's concerned, and he really liked melodic, almost not really the hair metal, but stuff like that from the 80s, stuff like Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
Billy is really into, like, the glam thing. He's a huge Kiss fan. He's a Poison fan, but there was, like, 4 or 5 years in his life where he went seriously goth and was listening to nothing but Ministry, And, I come from a probably more varied background than that. When I was younger, I was in prog bands covering things like Rush and Yes and, crazy stuff that we couldn't play at all, but we were doing it anyway. ZZ Top, Robin Trower, stuff like that. And, the bass stuff is always the 60s guys, the 60s and 70s guys. John Entwistle, Paul McCartney, Geddy Lee, guys that Chris Squire, guys that really understood that the bass guitar was more than simply something to go thump.
Right.
That there was actually melody and chording and shading that you can do with the bass, that it doesn't have to be limited.
Right.
And, so I bring that in, and it just really works out great, because Scott's, guitar style leads bases for the bass to go, particularly when he's singing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, and it all just fell together.
It's like the songs that your music tends to create imagery, I find, because the person can get a picture of what's going on in the lyrics, and they can also feel what the singer's portraying and saying in the lyrics. They can feel what he means and what he's saying.
Oh yeah, Scott, he's definitely coming from the heart, man. There's no question about it. I mean, for a big tough Scorpio, he is one of the most sensitive guys I know. He feels everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes out in his music, and that's why people can relate to it, because, who hasn't been completely confused by a relationship? Everybody's been in that place where you don't know what to think. It's like even in I Don't Owe You Anything, which overall sounds like a gigantic fuck you. At the end of the last verse, says, I love you, right? And it's like, okay, you just open that whole thing right back up. And you're telling her, I don't owe you anything but the truth. This is it. I'm done.
Right. Right.
But I love you. I mean, haven't we all been in that place?
Yeah, we have.
You know, and I think that's what it is, that he's just so good at not only coming up with the words to say it, but presenting that emotion in his vocals. You know, you really know when he sings that stuff that he felt that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't something that he saw on TV or read in a book. He felt that. You know, when he said, I don't owe you anything, but I love you, he meant it.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it's because I think that at the end of the day, this band is about making the music that we want to make, you know, and not worrying about, you know, who it might sound like or who we're trying to appeal to or what audience we're trying to catch. We figure if we just do what we do from the heart and do it the best way we can, that they'll come to us. And apparently that's true because it's working like a champ, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting, you know, like MySpace ads, a couple of hundred a day.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. I mean, who would have thunk it, you know? And, you know, I'm very happy about that, you know. And we ended up getting a record deal with A&S Records out of Texas that was just, you know, a brilliant thing. They gave us exactly what we wanted, which was one album, 1 year contract, you know, because we didn't want to be limited to, you know, some kind of contract with a label that wasn't going to be able to do what we needed them to do. So we figured, do one record, we'll give you a year, and let's see what you do with it, and you see what we can do with it, and if we agree at the end that it's a good relationship, we'll write another contract.
Does A&S Records help with the mixing and the recording and the mastering of all the band's songs?
No. They'll be mastering this CD,
Mm-hmm.
But all the production, all the recording, is all me.
Oh, wow.
And I work with a guy out of a studio called the Lava Room in Cleveland, Ohio, named Dustin Mate. He's my engineer. He's a kid, man. He's like 22 or something. But oh my God, I mean, he's just, not only does he have a real ear for what we're doing, but he genuinely likes the band and he respects me as a producer, you know. So, and that just goes so far. Yeah, I handle all of that.
Wow.
That was kind of the agreement that Scott and I came up with when we decided to, you know, work together, because I have always been the primary songwriter in every band I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but he really wanted to stretch. You know, he really wanted to do it.
Right.
He gets to do most of the songwriting. I handle all the production, you know, how the record's going to be made, where it's going to be made, who I'm going to work with, what I want them to do, you know, and it was a good trade-off, you know, because I think that I've been able to find, you know, Scott's voice in all of that, where somebody else who didn't know him wouldn't have been able to do it. You know, and he's comfortable enough with me that when I say, Scott, I need you to make people cry when you sing this, he doesn't get all self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's just like, oh, okay. You know, hand me a box of Kleenex and say, get ready.
That's awesome.
There's a song on the new record, Song to Myself. There's a live version of that we recorded in Greensboro, North Carolina on the MySpace site. It's like at the very bottom of the song list.
Okay.
And it was funny, you know, because we've been playing that song for a couple of months at the point that we recorded it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I had never heard the lyrics, you know, because when you're on stage or in rehearsal, you're not really listening to what he's singing. You're listening for cues,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're listening for those things that are going to signal that it's time to, you know, change the progression or do this or do that. So you're not really going, okay, what's Scott singing about? And when I sat down to master that live track and I really listened to the vocals for the first time, God is my witness, I burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, you know, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the guy had me, you know, sitting at the control console with tear running down my cheek, you know, and I'm going, oh my God, you know, this guy really has it.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess, you know, how do you know, with that song, how do you deal with the death of somebody that's so close to you, you know, and how do you deal with everybody else in your life when that happens, you know?
Right.
It's like Scott says in that song, you owe it to yourself to find a way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's John crying, oh, so there you go, right?
Right. It's just like when tragedy happens in a family, a lot of the times it does bring a broken family together. Like
It
tragedy.
really can.
Yeah, it
and
can.
I've seen it do the opposite, though, you know? I've seen the death in the family just tear everybody apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shame.
Or when somebody that's really sick in the family and they've gone through surgery, sometimes that brings the family back together again into one unit.
Yep, sure can.
You'd be surprised at the support that you never thought was there. It's suddenly there. And
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've seen that happen with family members of mine, who haven't spoken to each other for years, and all of a sudden this tragedy occurs, and everybody's like, oh, okay, now I remember what family is about. Now I remember why we were close.
Exactly.
Let's try to figure that out again and get it back.
And that's the one thing, if you can get it back, you want to make sure you want to just grab onto it and hold it and not let it go once you got it. Yeah.
And I guess, if you had to sum up what Last Stone Cast was about, you just said it, finding that thing to hold on to and making the commitment to do that and not letting it go.
Exactly.
No matter how hard it is. And sometimes it's hard as hell. So, and I think that, that gets reflected pretty much not only in the lyrical stuff, but just in the attitude of the music we make,
Right, it will in the long run. After the release of your first EP, Last Stone Cast, how did your tour go you had planned for the American Midwest? There was a talk of another one in Southern Ontario with American Dog and Broken Teeth. Did you ever make that tour?
That never happened for two reasons. First, one of the promoters that we were working with turned out to be a crook.
Oh, boy.
Fortunately, I'm pretty, I don't even know what the word is, firm about what I will and won't do. So, if I got a promoter asking me for money, the answer is no. So we didn't actually lose anything from that except a lot of dates that we had booked. And then when the Broken Teeth Ontario thing was supposed to happen is when our first drummer ended up having a little issue with the courts and spending some time in the county lockup, which is when we got Billy. Josh, our first drummer, had a little bit of a drinking, driving issue and ended up doing 60 days.
Wow.
And Scott and I at that point decided that, we really didn't have the 60 days to wait around for Josh to get out of jail, especially when we knew that when he got out he wasn't going to have a driver's license, so he wasn't going to have his truck, and, he wasn't going to be able to move his drums around, and he wasn't going to be allowed in bars because of the probation thing, and it just wasn't going to work. So that's when we talked to Bill and got him on board, and then we took that time we would have been in Ontario to regroup and make sure he knew all the songs that Josh had played on, and then while we were at it, decided to just write the next album. So that's what we did, and that's where Life Drew came from. In the process of Billy learning the first record, we wrote the second.
Wow.
So,
impressive.
Yeah, that was a pretty good period for us, man. It just seemed to be falling out of the sky, and when that happens, you have to realize and just grab it, man.
Oh yeah, take every opportunity you can get.
Yep.
How can you describe your live performances, and do you have any funny stories to tell from your previous shows?
God, all the stories are tragic, man.
It's serious. No funny ones.
Scott is a real front man, like back in the day when the guys that were standing up there in front of you, really honest to God, had a presence, and that really helped the live performance. And the fact that I'm working with two guys that are actually competent and I don't have to worry about what they're doing gives me the space, do a lot more moving around and whatnot. If anything, I think our live shows are probably better than what's on CD, simply because of the force behind what God put on the table, We haven't yet done a live show where we did just get ridiculous numbers of emails and crap like that as a result. So, it's obviously something to that. And I think it's really about professionalism and musicianship, for us. It's about not getting up on stage if you don't know exactly what it is you're trying to do, and you know the songs and you know what you're going to do. The only place we leave any kind of improvisational stuff is, in Scott solos. There's a couple of songs that occasionally he likes to just take off, and we're fine with that. The only time we stray from that is when we decide to throw a cover tune out. Because one of the rules we've got is that if we're going to play a cover song, we have to not know it. We learn it as we go. So one of us will know it, and then, by the time you get to the chorus, everybody does. The only cover song that we ever really do on a regular basis, Purple Rain.
Wow.
And, yeah,
I love that
I'm
song.
not exactly sure how that happened, but, it really does work. So, and occasionally Scott will just get a Van Halen attitude going, and we'll end up playing some Van Halen tune or something, which for me, of course, is a breeze because, the bass in Van Halen is not much.
Van Halen happens to be on my list of favorites. I have all their CDs.
Yeah, I think they're awesome. I just think that they should have let Mike Anthony open up a little bit, That was actually a solid bass player, and he just, he never really played. It was always that root note, quarter note thing. Boom, boom, boom. tour and all that.
I like the new stuff that they got out. They'll have their last CD that I got in 1990, but I've got all their CDs from the original 80s up until their last release.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got over at least 8 to 9 CDs that are all Van Halen.
Wow.
Quite the collection.
So are you a David Lee Roth guy or a Sammy Hagar guy?
I like them both.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I thought that David Lee Roth was the perfect frontman for that band, but Sammy Hagar really kicked it up a notch for him. You know, he brought a sense of musicianship to that band that was missing with David Lee Roth. You know, if you listen to the stuff that Eddie's doing with Sammy Hagar, it's actually, you know, way more interesting from a musician's point of view. You know, and it's because he could do that with Sammy Hagar because he didn't have a range that was as limited as David Lee Roth. I mean, David Lee Roth is the best David Lee Roth ever, but you know, he's got a certain range and a certain style, and if he strays from that, it just doesn't work for him. You know,
right.
Same. I've seen David Lee Roth like 4 or 5 times, man, and you know, I've always been impressed with that guy's ability to just grab a crowd and hold it. He's great at it.
Let me just grab that last CD I got.
Now we're talking about Van Halen, because my main thing has always been Rush. Always, ever since I was a kid, man. You know, I heard the song Anthem when I was like 12, and I was just like, oh my God.
Yes, I do have Sammy Hagar CDs, all of them as well. And the last Van Halen CD I have is called Balance. I have the CD in my hand.
Yeah, that's Amsterdam's on there, right?
Right, yeah.
That was a good record.
Yeah, that was the last CD I have of Van Halen was called Balance, but I do have all of their CDs, including Sammy Hagar's as well.
He did good stuff. I've always thought the first Van Halen album was just phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
That was a real eye-opener for me, I'll tell you what.
And to see them in concert is awesome. If you ever go to the Molson Amphitheater in Toronto, Ontario, to see these bands in concert is a great deal. I mean, once you're sitting down into the chairs, you have waitress coming, delivering beer, pizza, whatever you want. You know, once you order it out.
He saw Rush there a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. But the only thing is, once you leave there, just don't get caught drinking and driving.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Go to the Molson Amphitheater and then they arrest you for being drunk.
Oh, but they put on some really awesome concerts, and the stage is just, it's to be on the lake. I mean, it's just so much better. Because
Is it actually in Toronto?
It is in Toronto, and it is on the lake. It's a fantastic place to be. It's in the Molson Amphitheater. It's like a pavilion set out, and there's boats and along the lake and
Oh, that's cool.
Spread out, and there's vendors all over. It's a really fantastic place to be.
Yeah, you know, I've never really been to a concert in Toronto. I've been to some club shows, but one of these days, man, like I said, I'm in Toronto pretty often. You know, family up there, and I got some friends. So I love Toronto, man. It's just a great place.
Well, that's where HMTV Canada is popular. That's where our name is getting out. It's in the Toronto area because a lot of the underground bands that we interview is out of Toronto.
Well, that makes sense. I heard an underground band from Toronto about a year ago that I thought was pretty good. They were kind of an alternative band. Broom Filler, I think that's what they were called.
Oh, yeah?
Good. They're pretty good.
Okay.
Kind of a jangly R.E.M.y sort of thing.
Yeah, we've just interviewed Manu, and they're pretty close to the influencer. Their influences are U2, and they're really good band. And they just came out with a video. This Isn't Real. It was filmed down in the U.S.
Well, hey man, you can't go wrong with the U2 influence. Those guys were phenomenal. I mean, I was never a huge U2 fan, but I always recognized the uniqueness and the genius in what they were doing. You know, because they did exactly what they wanted to do, you know, and if they didn't know how, they just figured it out, did it, and you really gotta admire that. You know, I mean, if you watch the way the Edge used to play guitar, now he's actually gotten much technically better, you know, and he lost some of that weirdness that he used to have. I mean, he was just making that shit up. And they had no idea what he was doing, and it was just awesome. You know, and you really gotta give it up to guys that are willing to go out on a limb like that, you know, and obviously a lot of people agree with me because they've sold a zillion records and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Well, do you sell Last Stone cast CDs and merchandise at your live shows?
Yep, we sure do. We usually have CDs, T-shirts, you know, occasionally some other crap, depending. We get a lot, you know, we sometimes try different things. We were doing butt for a while, you know, pins, but, you know, those people didn't really seem to want to buy those, so we ended up giving them all away, which is okay, you know, because now there's a few hundred people running around with the Last Stone cast pin on their jacket. That works for me.
Yeah. Has Last Stone Cast been successful in promoting their campaign and raising awareness for the fight against AIDS?
Yeah, that's actually something that we picked up from Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's any business model that I follow, because I do all the management stuff for the band too. I do all the artwork and all the pretty much everything except write songs. Was looking at Rush and saying, how did this band do what they did?
Mm-hmm.
How can you be in the business for 35 years and only make the papers in a bad way one time? What are you doing? And why is it that people have the respect and the admiration they have for you? And I realized that because they stand behind what they do, they get involved with causes that mean something to them, and they actually work it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw that they were doing this AIDS prevention stuff, I was like, well, this is a band that will actually make a difference doing this, because I know that when they say it, it's going to happen. It's like what they did with the Human Rights Museum up in Ontario with the T-shirts and whatnot. I mean, they not only put their money where their mouth is, but they put their energy into it as well.
Yeah, it's just like the band U2 with the One campaign, and how they really push that out and want people to vote for it and want to get the word out there.
Well, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw they were doing that, we decided that we would jump on that one with them. And for about a month there, every time I sent out a bulletin with a new song or an announcement for a show or whatever, I would always pop in the banner for the AIDS awareness thing, just to direct people towards it. And we were actually getting emails, people saying, "Hey, we clicked on that. Thanks for making us aware of it. We're going to do this, that, or the other." We actually put together a package of crap and sent it to them. Some little shampoo bottles like that, because it really makes sense. What they're trying to do is get it to everyday stuff with AIDS people.
Yep.
Not just about the medical treatment. They also need simple things like clothing and shampoo and soap and shaving cream and stuff like that. Because if you're paying all the medical bills to try to deal with AIDS, you don't have money to buy a tube of toothpaste.
Same with cancer too. If you're paying for some of these pills that people have to take for cancer, can run up to anywhere between $500 to $1,000. I hear.
Yep, it is amazing.
Wow.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
So trying to deal with the everyday stuff for these people it just made so much sense to me, And it was something that we could do, and that other people and people that are fans or whatever could do too.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can snatch a couple of bottles of shampoo at the drugstore and put them in an envelope and mail them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a hardship. We might not be able to give thousands of dollars to a research organization or whatnot, but we can give somebody a hot meal or give somebody a new pair of pants or something.
Mm-hmm.
And in the long run, that is probably as important. Because it allows people to maintain their dignity and their humanity and their respect. And that's a serious thing, especially when you're talking about AIDS patients.
Right.
I mean, they have enough self-esteem issues going on without having to worry about whether or not they have, clean hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's something I'm curious about. What is Last Stone's Cast no-fly zone policy? And has the band had any bad experiences in the past to come up with their no-fly zone?
Yeah, that's a, I don't know how to say this, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot. We had some issues with a particular bar and some people associated with it, including I don't even know what you call them, one of those, extreme motorcycle clubs.
Oh.
Not Hell's Angels stuff, but, like the guys that, go flying down, the highway with no helmet on, standing on their handlebars, going 100 miles an hour kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, since we all have families, we take great exception to that kind of recklessness. If you want to go and drive like a maniac on a closed track somewhere and do stunt and whatnot, I think that's awesome. Go for it. But, it doesn't belong on the city street.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't, because there's, innocent people out there driving to the door or whatever. Wipe out a family just because you think you're cool. And that's not cool with us.
Right.
And so that's what that was about. We got into a big to-do with them because, our feelings about that, you probably noticed that we're pretty much, put where we're at on the table.
Yes.
And that was something that we just took serious exception to. And the no-fly zone refers to that.
And that Battle of the Bands, you had bad experiences with that as well?
Not bad experiences necessarily, just pains in the ass.
Do you feel some of them are rigged?
What, the stunt stuff?
No, the Battle of the Bands. Do you think some of the votes are rigged? They pretty much...
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that there's cheating involved? And that, to me, like, in all fairness, it seems like if you're going to have a Battle of the Bands, choose fans that are not fans of the bands. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I do know what you're saying.
Choose an audience that's never heard of the bands before and let them decide. And then let's see the votes and the names. And let's see the tallies and the totals.
And how do you decide anyway? I mean, what are the criteria?
Right.
I mean, is it popularity?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it musical ability?
Right.
Or is it, ability to sell tickets? What are you looking for? What are you battling over? I mean, that's why we won't do that kind of thing. It's just ridiculous, man. Music's not a sport. It's not a competition.
When it becomes a sport and competition, where's the art in it? The art's gone.
Right, well, and that's exactly my point, I mean, music is all good, man. It's just that I personally, and you two, prefer certain types of music and certain bands more than others, but that doesn't make stuff that I don't like bad.
You know what I love? I love what Kim Mitchell says. Music is all good. It's just you've never been exposed to it before. He said that in my interview.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I might not necessarily like hip-hop, but that doesn't mean that it's bad.
But it's just funny what he said the other day. He says, I don't care what anybody says. There's a little bit of Motown in everybody's music. There's a little bit of soul.
Absolutely, man. If it doesn't have soul, it does. Exactly, and that's why so much of that racist punk stuff on Resistance Records is such crap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got no soul. All it's got is anger. And even the angriest bands, bands like Slayer, when those guys got into their groove, those guys they swing, man.
Yeah.
They get a groove that's just unbelievable. Even at the heaviest stuff they're doing, you still got that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take that out, what are you left with? So I would agree with that completely. I love old Motown. Actually, I'm partial to artists that were on Atlantic myself, but it's just a personal thing. Same era.
Yeah. Well, it's just like we do listen to a lot of the Q107, and we listen to a lot of the old classics that still come on, and that are the major influences in the bands that you hear today. Because when you've listened to Q107, you're on MySpace and you're listening to music. Oh, that you can relate that to similarities in what you just heard on radio. Some of the bands.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only 8 natural notes. There's only so much you can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I really dig old R&B stuff. People like, the Atlantic people, Sam and Dave, Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding. Oh my God, those guys were just unbelievable.
And that's exactly what Kim Mitchell had said, because he's a DJ for Q107. He was just praising them up. And
man, Wilson Pickett, oh my God, that guy had so much soul, so much groove, man. Sounds like Mustang Sally. Mm-hmm. Bands of 1,000 Dances. They're so simple, man.
And you see a lot of those influences in the music today. You see a lot of them in the classical, like in the classic rock. You see a lot of those influences as well. You see a lot of those influences in music.
Oh yeah, well I think there's been a real blending and blurring of sounds and genres lately. I mean, look at what's going on with country music.
Yeah.
I mean, what they're calling country today was like Southern rock 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it all sounds like Marshall Tucker, man, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I found myself like watching country music TV from time to time going, wow, this is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the music awards a couple of months ago. Reba McEntire hosted, I think it was the CMTs or something, and, Kelly Pickler sang, and I was like, wow, she's really good.
I heard 1234. Now, they're a Canadian rock band just a couple of months ago, and I was just blown away by their CD. I bought it immediately. 5 minutes after listening to them, I just, decided just to buy their CD. I was so impressed by that 1234 band.
Don't you love it when that happens?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah, man. Song My Baby Does the Hanky Panky by Tommy James. I heard that song when I was a kid, and that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, this is what I was going to do.
Well, 3 minutes after listening to Kim Mitchell's Ain't Life Amazing, I bought the CD immediately. And it's not going to take me long to buy your album when it comes out, because, I'm waiting for that to come out, and I can't wait. It's like I want it now.
Yeah, I know. You don't know how frustrating that is. I mean, I've got a CD of all my raw tracks in my Jeep that I've been listening to, and I know exactly what I need to do, I mean, I even sat down with a pad of paper and a pen and wrote down, times and stuff like that where I needed to do stuff.
But
so I'm so ready to finish this.
Yeah, I bet you're getting this from a lot of fans, aren't you?
Well, I'm hearing it every day.
Yeah, hearing it every day. They can't wait.
But it's frustrating as hell at the same time,
Yeah, I know. But I'll wait, so you don't have no worries there. I'll wait till it comes out, because I know when it does come out, it's going to be really good.
Well, I'll make absolutely sure you get one of the first copies.
That's awesome.
I was actually talking to my A&R guy at the record company today, and I figure I've got probably 20 or 50 hours of work left to do on it.
Oh, wow.
Which is it's just right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because really, when you're talking about mixing a CD and producing the final product on a CD, 30 hours is not that long. I mean, that's only 3 hours a song.
Right.
And if you think about it, that's not much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Metallica took how many years for this new album they just put out?
Oh, wow. It was a long time.
They've worked on that album for like a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact when we finish this album, we will put probably 60 hours into it.
I'm curious. Will you be considering coming out with albums on vinyl with your previous CDs and with Life Construed?
You know what? I have never really given that any thought until you mentioned it in your email the other day, and I don't know. I haven't even looked into that as a possibility. If there's a demand for it, I'd absolutely try to figure out how to make it happen.
Some bands are coming out with a few copies that they sell as limited editions in concerts. And you'd be surprised on how many kids that are like 10 and 11 are going into thrift stores or going into used music stores and buying Pink Floyd on vinyl. There is a lot of them.
There is an argument for that, definitely.
Yeah, because they're discovering them, and there's a lot of them going into different music stores or used music stores or thrift stores, and they buy up old CDs, and they're grabbing the old Metallica on vinyl and the old Led Zeppelin CDs on vinyl.
Well, that's good news.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's. I got to give it up, man, to Guitar Hero. I mean, I thought that was the biggest bunch of crap when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. But I've seen, like, with Scott's son, who just turned 12, this kid is all about Aerosmith now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you know what? He might have gotten there messing around with a video game, but look what he's listening to.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think that it's introducing classic rock and some of these, these formative rock bands to a whole new generation of listeners, and I have a lot of confidence in the future of rock music as a result of that,
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, after, Limp Bizkit or whatever, Cold Chamber, I mean, where do you go? I think one of the reasons that particular genre died is because there was no place else for it to go, and that's why Linkin Park's last album was so eclectic, which was actually a good thing. I think that they really demonstrated some real serious stuff on that CD.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now the kids are listening to Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Motorhead and all that crap again.
And Poison.
Hope for the future.
Yeah, Pink Floyd and similar genres that play that type of music on CDs, and I think there's so much uncertainty in the music business today. Like a lot of it's downloads, yes, but a lot of it they still like to have that physical CD in their hand or that vinyl in their hand. There seems to be like a mix going on.
Yep, and I think that's reflecting throughout the music business. I think that there's a lot of confusion and a lot of uncertainty about how they're going to now sell their product, right? I mean, like with A&S Records, they're really primarily concerned with digital distribution. I mean, we will have physical CDs for sale, but in order to get it to the people that need to hear it, the programmers and stuff like that, you really don't need a physical copy of the CD anymore. You have to have it published through the right publishing company and sent to the right people digitally. And it's like, that's all well and good, but how do you know what's going on?
But you gotta admit, it's the vinyl and the high definition audio CDs that sound better because it's like an MP3 is compressed, and when you
absolutely,
and when you have something that's audio or on vinyl, you open it up, so it sounds way better.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been thinking about that lately because I'm going to be finishing the CD in Greensboro, right? I'm going to, I have to do some final editing on it up in Cleveland, and I want to do that with Dustin because he's my man, and he's my boy, and he knows what to do. Then I'm bringing it down here to Greensboro to finish mixing. And the studio I'll be using down here is a Pro Tools-based studio, but they also have a complete analog system. So I've been thinking about possibly running what I've got back through the analog and then bringing it back to digital before I master it. Because that will do exactly what you're talking about. It opens that up. It puts air in it. It puts space in it that digital doesn't catch.
Right.
That's also the reason that I do all the basic tracks on our albums live. Give us playing at the same time, right? I mean, you should have seen what we had to go through to get Scott's guitar going on this album. We had to build a big box around it with and throwing blankets over it and stuff like that, you could play live in the room, but it wouldn't bleed into the drum tracks. That was funny as hell, man. It's like a little fort that we built, like when you're a kid building a fort out of the cushions from your mom's couch, except we built it around his Marshall stack, so it would bleed into the drum mics.
Wow.
But then what we got in the end was the three of us doing what we do best, which is looking at each other and playing off each other, and Billy and I do a lot of, I can look at him and I'll know what he's going to do next, so I can be there when he gets there. And when you do it, how they do Pro Tools stuff now, one thing at a time, you just lose that. You lose that rock band feel,
Right.
I mean, look at Aerosmith, man. I mean, those guys, they were sloppy as fuck, man. But it didn't matter because when the five of them were playing together, it wasn't sloppy anymore. All of a sudden it was something different. All of a sudden it was huge.
Because what you're getting on the live audio, and what you're hearing on vinyl is exactly how you're going to sound when you're live.
Exactly.
Yes, that was my point. Okay, where do you think the music industry is going to be in the future? What's your opinion? Where it's going?
That's funny. I've thought about that a lot. I think what we're going to go to is almost like these micro markets, these regional markets that's happening now. People are starting to pay attention to where music is coming from again. And you get these bands like Broken Teeth or like American Dog who have a very, they have a solid audience, but they never really get past the region that they're in. And you know what I mean? And I think that we're going to see more and more of that. I think the days of the huge supergroup are probably pretty much over. But then they've said that before and they were wrong, right? So we'll see. But who are the huge bands now? I mean, these guys are all been on the road 20, 30 years now. Metallica, Pearl Jam, U2. But what new band out there right now is doing that? There just aren't any. I mean, even great bands like Three Doors Down, they might sell 10,000 seaters maybe if the market was right.
Right. If you get the good tours now, and you get a good turnout of fans attending the tours, that's where the band is making its money, and that's where it's at right now. And
so I think that we're going to start seeing, lots of bands in a lot of different places, but not any really huge thing, and I don't think that the record companies have really got a handle on how to deal with that, because up until this point, their markets have been national or global, and now all of a sudden they have to start thinking Ontario, American Midwest, American South, and that's a totally different thing. And I think one of the reasons that Last Stone Cast clicks in the place that it does is because people pick up on that.
Yeah.
For some reason, the things that we sing about and the way that it plays clicks with people like in the Midwest, and it clicks with people in, the Mid-Atlantic, like North Carolina and Virginia, because they can relate to our experience. So they see the three of us and they see themselves, right? But somebody that's living in Montana or Alberta or something looks at us and they don't know who the hell we are. And it doesn't matter, because
right.
we're, if they don't pick up on where we're at, that's fine. Because there's another band out there that's doing the same thing. And it lets the fan really be more of a part of who that band is, I know our fans tend to adopt us, we kind of become part of their life.
Yeah.
Which is something that I don't think really happens to a band like Metallica or Pearl Jam. When we show up to play genuinely happy to see us, not just because we're going to play, but because they're happy to see us personally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's kind of cool.
It's always nice to hear from fans that your music was part of their life, or they remember part of their life from the songs and lyrics and that you had played. Like, for example, Patio Lanterns by Kim Mitchell was part of a big influence in my life, because that was the time I met my first, got married, and basically started living my life with my first.
Yep.
It was that type of music that I grew up on. Basically, songs like that, there's lots of songs like that we hear on radio, and when we do hear them and they do influence our life and we can relate to them and we can relate to the lyrics, that's a rare thing.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's so important.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's where you build imagery, and Nazareth, like Love Hurts. I used to request that on Q107 all the time, because some came out like I could relate to so many of my brothers and sisters breaking up their relationship and then getting back together, and that song being the number one song of bringing relationships back together, like
that's
broken marriages.
Hate that band, you know.
We just had him playing in our town. Manny Charlton was there. There was two of the drummer and the other guitar player, but the lead singer never showed up. But I don't care. They put on a good show, and to have them come back in the music scene is a big thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
At their moments for sure. I've been actually suggested to Scott one time that we learn the song "Please Don't Judas Me" as a cover.
Mm-hmm.
I always love that tune.
Where can worldwide fans access Last Stone cast music to buy CDs and band merchandise online through the internet?
The CD is on CD Baby.
Okay.
And there's a link on our MySpace, or you can just go to CD Baby. We're to continue to do that. We've also got digital stuff all over the place, like at Reverb Nation. We got some stuff on our MySpace that you can download for free, but you really do want to hear it on CD. Sounds much better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. Then, of course, we have them when we're out, playing and gigging. We'll always have CDs. One of the things that I've been talking to the record company about is how to get better distribution on the CD. And what I'll probably do with that is go through a smaller chain and just do it with them. You know, kind of like how the Eagles only sell their music at Walmart. So we'll only sell it at, one record store chain. But there's way more to doing that than I thought there was, so it's going to take me a little bit to figure it out. So, and the record company has their distribution network through Sony too, but I'm really, I know that we're not going to be a high priority for them for sure, at least not from the start. So you do it by yourself. I think that's one thing that I've learned over the years, and I've definitely brought it to this band, is that the only way to make sure that what you're trying to do gets out there is to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do it yourself. Get the music to the people yourself. Do the artwork that you want for your cover yourself. Then you're going to have exactly what you want. Produce the record yourself. Then it's really you. Be true to what it is you're doing, and do it right. Because there's just so many people that the road. It's the good intentions thing,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's my rant on that, Tina.
Okay, so when can we expect Last Stonecast to come to play in Ontario?
Well, you have the right people. Contact me, and we'll come. Absolutely. The only issue would be, the whole work permit thing. It's one of those things, trying to get the visas and the work permits to come and play. Yeah, but get the right people to get in touch with me, and, we'll definitely come up, man. Gives me an excuse to go to Toronto and have dinner, man.
For sure. Before we wrap up our interview, do you have any last words?
No, I really don't. Except I'm really looking forward to seeing how this comes out. I've been checking out your guys' web stuff and listening to your podcast, whatnot. It's pretty cool, man.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, John, for allowing our HMTV Canada E-Sign to interview Last Stonecast. You rock.
Absolutely. And if you need anything else, just give me a shout, okay?
I can't wait for that CD to come out.
Yep, we'll definitely get you a copy as soon as we got them in our hands.